I've spent a good chunk of my life chewing over what folks mean when they talk about that gut feeling. You know, that little voice deep inside that pipes up when something ain't sitting right. People always go on about it, saying it's like a whisper in your belly warning you trouble's brewing, but most of the time, they just shrug it off like it's nothing worth fussing over. Looking back now, I can tell you my own gut was hollering at me something fierce in the weeks before my wedding day. It was practically banging a drum, telling me my fiancée Sarah and my best buddy Miles were getting way too cozy, way past what felt normal or okay. But back then I had a million things piling up on me. My job at this tech outfit was eating me alive. Long hours, endless emails, and on top of that I was knee-deep in putting together this big fancy wedding Sarah couldn't stop dreaming about. Plus, her folks, Victor and Evelyn Stone, were a handful, always pushing and prodding with their high and mighty expectations. I was so beat from juggling all that, 10-hour days, phone buzzing non-stop, picking out flowers and tablecloths, that I didn't have the energy to dig into those uneasy feelings creeping up on me. Every now and then I'd catch something that'd set my stomach twisting. Like I'd spot Sarah and Miles off in a corner, cracking up over some joke I wasn't in on, or I'd see Miles eyeballing her a little too long, and it'd spark this jealous burn inside me. I try to shake it off though. I was wiped out, and who's got time to play detective when you're barely keeping your head above water? Still, the signs kept popping up like weeds. They were texting each other all the time, way more than a bride-to-be and a best friend ought to. I'd see 'em grinning at their phones, tossing out these sly little comments they wouldn't let me in on. If I piped up and asked, "Hey, what's so hilarious over there?" they'd dodge me with some half-baked excuse. Sarah'd say, "Oh, it's just a dumb picture Miles sent," or Miles would chime in with, "Nah, it's nothing you'd get, man," or the one that really got me, "Just a little inside thing, don't worry about it." They'd play it cool, but it never really cleared the air, you know? Left me feeling like an outsider in my own life. Now, Miles and me, we go way back, clear to our first year at college. We bunked together in this tiny dorm room that smelled like old socks and ramen, pulled all-nighters cramming for tests, and always covered for each other when one of us needed an alibi or a favor. I figured we were tight, like brothers almost, and that's probably why I kept shoving those doubts down deep. Him turning on me? Couldn't wrap my head around it. I'd tell myself over and over, he's my best man, for crying out loud. Guys always had my back. Why would that change now? Looking back, I was kidding myself, but at the time, I clung to that trust like a lifeline. Sarah and Miles pulling something shady? Nah, I'd think. No chance. Just my tired brain making mountains out of molehills. Boy, was I in for a rude awakening. Sarah, man, she had it all growing up. No question about that. Her folks, the Stones, they were the kind of people who loved strutting around town like they owned the place. Her dad, Victor, he was some hotshot in local government, always shaking hands and making deals, while her mom, Evelyn, acted like she was the queen of every charity dinner and town gathering she could elbow her way into, flashing these big fake smiles for the crowd. When I popped the question to Sarah, you'd think her parents might have slapped me on the back and cracked open a beer to celebrate. No. They didn't come right out and call me trash, but they had this sneaky way of letting me know I wasn't quite up to their level. They'd drop little hints, like how hitching myself to Sarah was my ticket to the good life, or how the Stone family had this reputation I'd darn well better live up to. That high and mighty attitude didn't stop with me, it bled straight into the wedding plans too. At first they said, "Don't worry, we'll split the bill with your folks fair and square." Sounded good, right? But then they started pushing for all this over-the-top stuff. A fancy venue that cost an arm and a leg, flower arrangements so pricey I nearly choked when I saw the bill, some harp players like we were royalty or something, and a guest list that swelled up to almost 400 people. My parents, they're simple folks. Dad's a retired librarian who spent his life shelving books, and Mom's a physical therapist who's about ready to hang it up. They didn't have piles of cash lying around, but they ended up digging into their savings just to keep up with their half. I tried putting my foot down a few times, saying we needed to reel it in, but Evelyn would hit me with lines like, "The Stones don't do things halfway," or, "What's everyone gonna think if Sarah looks like she's skimping on her special day?" That kind of talk rubbed me raw, and Sarah? She'd just go along with it, giving me a little shrug and saying, "Come on, let him enjoy it, babe. It's only once, right?" Yeah, famous last words that had come back to haunt us big time. Then, maybe 2 weeks before the wedding, Miles piped up with that easygoing grin of his and offered to take care of booking hotel rooms for all the out-of-town folks crashing the event. "You're running ragged, buddy," he told me, flipping through his phone to show me some screenshots of reservations he'd started. Let me handle this for you. It felt like the old days, counting on him to pick up the slack when I needed it most. I was grateful, told him so too, and it eased my mind a bit. Fast forward to the night before the big day, and we're all at this swanky rehearsal dinner spot. Sarah's decked out in this dress that's almost white, like a sneak peek of the wedding gown, bouncing around the room yakking with her dad's relatives. Those people barely gave me a nod, by the way, made me feel like a ghost in my own party. My mom and dad hung back, looking lost in all the glitz and money floating around the place. Miles, though, he kept things light, tossing me these little winks from across the room like he was keeping me grounded. Once we practiced the ceremony, folks started trickling into the lounge area for a laid-back after-party vibe. The energy was up, drinks were pouring, and everyone seemed to be having a good time, until I realized Sarah wasn't anywhere in sight. I pulled out my phone, dialed her up, but it went straight to that robotic voicemail message. One of her bridesmaids brushed it off when I asked, saying, "Oh, she just needed a breather, felt a little swamped, you know?" I nodded, figuring that made sense. It was the night before the wedding after all, nerves can hit hard, and maybe she just wanted a quiet minute to herself. But then the clock kept ticking, and pretty soon I noticed Miles was gone too. At first, I didn't let my mind run wild. Maybe he stepped out to grab another round of beers or hit the restroom. No big deal, right? But then that nagging little voice in my head started muttering, "Hey man, you better go check on this. Find him. Find her." And once that thought took hold, it wouldn't let go. Time kept dragging on, 45 minutes turned into a whole hour, and that itch in the back of my mind wouldn't quit. I couldn't shake this nagging feeling, so I yanked my phone out of my pocket and started digging through social media, hunting for any sign of where Sarah or Miles might be. I was flipping through posts and stories, and then bam, I hit the jackpot on Sarah's Instagram. She'd thrown up one of those quick little clips, you know, the kind that vanishes after a bit, and she must have deleted it fast but not fast enough. I caught it just in time. The video showed a hallway in some hotel with this fancy silver-patterned carpet and part of a room number peeking into the frame. I knew right off the bat it wasn't the wedding venue, different vibe, different look. My chest tightened up like someone had cranked a vice around it. That gut instinct I'd been pushing aside for weeks came roaring back, loud as a freight train, screaming, "You've got to go see what's up, man. Right now." No more brushing it off, I needed answers. I jumped in my car and peeled out, tearing through the streets near the hotel district, tires humming against the pavement. My brain was spinning, tossing out all kinds of excuses to calm me down. Maybe Sarah just crashed at a buddy's room to unwind? Maybe Miles was playing the good friend, helping her with something innocent? My heart was pounding like a jackhammer, and I kept mumbling to myself, "No way they're tangled up together like that. That's nuts. Can't be happening." But this sharp, awake part of me wasn't buying my own bull anymore. It was done letting me talk myself out of the truth. I remembered Miles had booked some hotel rooms for the out-of-town guests not too long ago, but I didn't have the specifics on where or which ones. I pulled into the parking lot of this slick little boutique hotel I'd seen around, swung into a spot, and headed for the lobby. I was half hoping the folks at the front desk might know me from dropping by before or recognize Miles' name from his bookings. It wasn't much of a plan, but then I saw it, Miles' car parked right out front, plain as day. If that wasn't the universe waving a big red flag in my face, I don't know what was. I took the elevator up to the 6th floor, my nerves buzzing like a live wire. My eyes were bouncing from door to door, scanning the numbers, trying to match what I'd glimpsed in that video. 632, 633, something in that ballpark. My pulse was thumping so hard I could hear it in my ears, and my boots clomped loud against the quiet hallway floor. Outside, the windows showed nothing but black night. Inside, the ceiling lights glared down bright and harsh, like they were daring me to do something. I wasn't itching to bust in and start a fight, not yet at least. Deep down, I wanted something concrete, some hard evidence I could hold on to later so I wouldn't feel like I'd lost my mind over nothing. I eased up to room 633, leaned in close, and pressed my ear against the door. Dead silence at first. My heart kicked up another notch as I gave the knob a gentle twist. Crazy thing was, it wasn't locked tight. Whoever was inside had just flipped the basic latch, nothing more. Then it hit me. Miles had handed me a master key card a few weeks back, saying it was for wedding emergencies. In case a guest room gets screwed up, he told me, acting all helpful. I dug it out of my wallet, slid it into the slot, and after a tense second that little green light winked at me. The door clicked open real quiet. They might as well have rolled out the welcome mat for their own mess, I thought, my stomach doing flips. I stepped inside, soft as a shadow, not making a peep. The room was darkish, just a faint glow from the lamps, with little flickers dancing on the walls. Then I heard it, a low, cozy murmur, and my blood started simmering. There they were, sprawled out on this giant king-sized bed. Sarah barely wearing a thing, her hair all wild and messy, lounging on those soft sheets, and Miles hovering over her, just as stripped down. They were muttering something back and forth, too hushed for me to make out the words, but then Sarah let out this soft little laugh, and it stung me like a smack across the face. That was it, that was all I needed to see. This hot wave of anger crashed over me so fast I clenched my fists, ready to storm over there, rip Miles off that bed, and let loose a string of cuss words that'd peel the paint off the walls. I wanted to tell him exactly what I thought of him for pulling this. But right then this tiny, steady voice broke through the rage saying, "Hold up, man. Don't give him the satisfaction. Get something solid first." The wedding was less than 15 hours away and a plan started brewing. I'd let him stand up there with me thinking I was still clueless so I could rip their sneaky little act to shreds in front of everybody. Let him believe they pulled it off, I told myself, locking that thought in tight. My hands were shaking like crazy as I fumbled with my phone, flipping it to video mode and zooming in tight on the scene in front of me. I held my thumb over the record button, whispering under my breath, "Gotta make sure they see this later, every bit of it." I pressed down and started filming, catching a few seconds of Sarah and Miles all twisted up together on that bed. Her face was plain as day, no mistaking it, and Miles' shape was just as clear, with a little date and time glowing down in the corner of the screen. They didn't have a clue I was standing there. Miles leaned in close and mumbled something like, "Nobody's ever gonna know about this," and Sarah let out this low, cocky chuckle that cut right through me. The phone grabbed it all, crisp, no fuzz, every detail locked in. I was trembling from head to toe, mad as hell, but I clamped my teeth together hard, telling myself, "Keep it quiet, man, they can't know you're here." I kept repeating in my head, "Don't blow up now, this ain't the moment," like a mantra to stop me from losing it right then and there. Once I had what I needed, I started backing off slow, still recording as I went, letting the mic snag every little sound that could give him away. I slipped the door shut real soft, same way I'd come in, then bolted, practically sprinting down the hall to the elevator. When I stepped outside, it felt like a tornado was churning inside me, ready to bust loose come morning. The chilly night air hit me like a slap, snapping me out of the daze I'd been in. My heart was slamming so hard I thought it might bust out of my chest, like I'd just run a full-on race. Anger was crashing over me in big, heavy waves, pushing me to yell or just collapse right there on the pavement. I clutched my phone tight in my sweaty hand, solid proof that the two people I'd leaned on most had stabbed me in the back. I took a second to pull myself together, sucking in deep breaths until I wasn't gasping anymore, then climbed into my car and just drove. No plan, no direction, just moving, until I wound up at this 24-hour cafe I knew. I slid into a beat-up booth, pulled up the video and watched it by myself. No way to kid myself, it was real, all right there in front of me. That's when this icy, sharp-edged idea started forming in my head. They'd made me look like a chump, no doubt about it, but I was gonna flip the script tomorrow and make sure I wasn't the only one left with egg on my face. Sleep wasn't even on the table that night. By 3 in the morning, I'd chugged 4 cups of that cafe's bitter coffee, scribbled some messy notes for what I was calling my wedding speech, and worked out a rough game plan to hijack the next day's rundown so I could grab the microphone and the projector setup. The venue had this killer audio-visual system, perfect for running a little show I'd put together of me and Sarah's life. You know, cute shots of her as a kid, me being a dork in high school, us goofing off at the park, all that sappy stuff. I built it myself, but switching it up? Piece of cake. I knew the gear inside and out, hook up a flash drive, plug in my phone, whatever it took, and I could change what rolled on that screen. A little part of me hesitated, feeling weird about blasting something so personal in front of a crowd. But then I'd flash back to how they'd been sneaking around behind me, not even a day before our wedding. That cold, hard betrayal lit a fire under me. My revenge felt right, at least in my book. They were about to find out you can't pull that kind of crap without it coming back around. By 5 in the morning, I pulled up to the apartment me and Sarah had been calling home for almost 2 years. Didn't shock me one bit, she wasn't there. Maybe she figured I was still in the dark, planning to creep in at dawn, crash in the guest room, and spin some story about a wild girl's night out. But when I shoved the door open, the place was dead still. Living room dark, bedroom all squared away like nobody'd touched it. I walked into what used to feel like our little hideout. Now it was like stepping into a stranger's house. Her charger was plugged in by the bed, and the box I'd put her ring in was sitting on the dresser, just staring me down. A sharp ache hit me in the chest, but the anger burned hotter, drowning it out. She tossed everything we'd built for a quick roll with my best friend. I flipped my phone to silent, flopped down on the mattress and tried to snag a couple hours of shut-eye, but my brain wouldn't quit spinning, kept racing a mile a minute. Sarah finally rolled in around 11 in the morning. I caught the soft click of the front door unlocking and decided to play it cool, lying there on the bed like I was still knocked out, just to see what she'd do. Sure enough, her footsteps were quiet as a mouse. She didn't want me stirring and asking where she'd been all night. She didn't even poke her head into our room. I heard her sneak straight down the hall to the spare bedroom, probably scrambling to pull herself together after whatever she'd been up to. About 20 minutes later, I dragged myself out of bed, threw on a big fake yawn, and shuffled into the kitchen like it was any old day. There she was, perched at the counter, hair brushed neat, dressed in a baggy t-shirt and sweatpants. She shot me a worn-out smile and said, "Hey babe. I crashed at a friend's place last night, too much bubbly at the rehearsal dinner, you know how it gets." I grinned back at her, but inside, my head was buzzing with that video I'd snagged the night before. "Sounds like you had a wild time," I said, keeping my tone nice and steady. "Glad you're all right though." I leaned over, planted a quick kiss on her cheek, and choked down every biting word I wanted to let fly. Her eyes flicked for a second, part relief, part wariness, like she was fishing to see if I suspected anything. She's feeling me out, I thought. Had to be wondering if I'd sniffed out her secret, but I kept my face blank as a wall, giving her nothing to grab onto. "Keep thinking you're in the clear," I told myself. Just a few more hours of playing dumb and I'd be ready to drop the hammer. The wedding was locked in for 2 in the afternoon at this ritzy place called Crestwood Manor. Picked, 'cause it's got that big shot reputation. My folks showed up around noon, all smiles and totally clueless about the firestorm churning inside me. I hugged him back, but it felt empty, like going through the motions. Mom was glowing in her light blue dress, and Dad gave my shoulder a solid clap, probably remembering me as that shy kid from way back. I plastered on a smile and mumbled something about needing to tweak the audio-visual setup at the last minute. "Catch you guys in a bit," I said. Sarah was off in her fancy suite, getting dolled up with the bridesmaids, and Miles was likely hanging with the groomsmen. I wasn't about to go looking for him. Let him kick back all smug and cozy, thinking I'm still blind to it all, I figured. I ducked into the audio-visual booth up above the main hall. The tech guy, Jake, was messing with the microphone and projector, fiddling with wires and buttons. "This here's Ethan, the groom," he said to some helper nearby. "He's got some extra stuff he wants to toss in, yeah?" "You bet," I said, flashing an easy grin. I pulled a flash drive out of my pocket and held it up. "I'm scrapping the sappy old slideshow for something with a little more punch." Jake laughed. "Your call, man, it's your big day. Just say when to roll it." I gave the drive a light tap. "I'll throw you a heads up, might just say hit it, and believe me, you'll know the moment." A tiny twinge of second-guessing poked at me, but I shoved it down. They dug this hole themselves, I thought. The ceremony was supposed to kick off right at 2 in the grand hall. This big fancy room with sky-high ceilings, sparkling chandeliers, and chairs lined up like something out of a magazine. By 1:50 the place was buzzing, folks chatting, snapping pics, swapping small talk. Sarah's crew took over most of the room, packed with the Stones people. Town bigwigs, business buddies, and a ton of family. My little posse, friends, co-workers, my folks, was there too, but they got swallowed up in her crowd. The idea was I'd be standing up front with the officiant, waiting for the wedding party to stroll in. But come 1:55 I was nowhere near that altar. The officiant, this old friend of Sarah's dad, looked lost, glancing around the room. Victor Stone kept peeking at his watch, his jaw getting tighter by the second. Mom fidgeted in her seat, worried. Evelyn, all stiff in her green getup, leaned over to some guests and grumbled, "Where's Ethan at? Is he always this flaky?" She loved tossing those jabs my way. Sarah was probably freaking out somewhere in the back, but I wasn't down there to watch her sweat. I was up on the 3rd-floor balcony, peeking through the curtains, sizing up the crowd and feeling the vibe. When the clock ticked over to 2:01, Right when those doors should have swung open for Sarah's big entrance, all you could hear was this ripple of confusion, a low hum of folks starting to wonder. Time to light the fuse, I thought. I slipped back into the audiovisual booth, where Jake was pacing by the controls looking antsy. He spotted me and said, "Dude, we're 3 minutes past, everything good?" "Never better," I shot back with a tight grin, stepping up to the microphone hooked into the overhead speakers. My heart was banging so hard I figured it might bust a rib, but the mix of fury and adrenaline kept me locked in. "Here goes nothing," I muttered. I flipped the microphone switch and my voice boomed through the hall. "Hey everybody, good evening." The room went dead quiet like a wave washing over it. Head spun around figuring I'd pop up at the front. Nope. People started getting restless, puzzled. Sarah's dad jumped to his feet, scanning every corner. Her mom put a hand to her chest, playing it up like a drama queen. "Hey officiant," I went on, "that whole ceremony thing? Yeah, it's not happening today." You could hear the gasps popping off like firecrackers one after another. Folks squirmed in their chairs, craning their necks to find me. Some stood up, thinking I might be by the speakers. Sarah had to be unraveling back in her suite. Jake shot me this wide-eyed look like he couldn't believe it. I gave him a nod to fire up the video. He stumbled a bit, plugged my flash drive in and waited for my signal. "Hold off on getting mad," I said, my voice ringing off the walls. "I've got a quick something to share, a little movie." "Jake, go ahead and run it." The giant projector screen had been flipping through those sweet old pictures of me and Sarah. Happy times, you know? Then it blinked out for a second. Pitch black. And then, wham, up came the raw footage I'd nabbed less than 15 hours earlier. Sarah and Miles, all tangled up in those hotel sheets, their voices floating out, that date and time stamp glowing bright in the corner. I tweaked it just enough to catch Miles' face turning, totally oblivious to me standing there, and zoomed in on the clock behind him, blaring that it was the night before this wedding. The place went nuts, shocked yells, a dead-still pause, then a flood of ticked-off whispers. People froze, hands clapped over their mouths. Some old aunt or something hollered, "Oh my goodness," loud enough to wake the dead. Victor Stone, still on his feet, almost tripped over his chair. Evelyn's face scrunched up like she'd bitten into a lemon. Miles, probably chilling with the groomsmen, must have heard the chaos and figured out his number was up. Too late now, pal, I thought. Up in that audiovisual booth, I could hear the whole place falling apart. People stomping around like a herd of cattle, voices hollering over each other in a wild mess. The officiant just stood there at the front, gawking at the screen like a deer in headlights, no help to anybody. One of the bridesmaids let out a yelp that cut through the noise, and off to the side somebody barked, "Shut that thing off." I let the video roll for a good 15 seconds, long enough for everyone to clock the timestamp, soak in the ugly truth, and figure out it was my fiancé and my best buddy stabbing me in the back. Then I killed the feed. The screen went black, but the room kept spinning out of control. Jake, the tech guy, looked white as a ghost. "What the heck just happened, man?" he muttered, but I was done with the microphone, stepped back and let it be. Down on the floor, Sarah came barreling through the doors, all decked out in her wedding dress, her face twisted up with terror. Her hair was perfect, makeup spot on, but no amount of pretty could cover the freak out in her eyes. "Cut it out," she shouted, her voice shrill and cracking. She must have missed the clip by a hair, but the shell-shocked looks on everybody's faces clued her in quick. Evelyn stormed toward the projector setup, jabbing her finger at the staff like she was running a war room. "Who let this happen?" she snapped. Jake ducked back in the booth, no way to answer her. Victor came charging down the aisle like a ticked-off grizzly, bellowing, "Ethan! Where you at, Ethan?" His face was turning all splotchy, and folks scrambled out of his way, not sure whether to bolt or stick around. My mom was crying soft over in her seat. Dad stood next to her, shooting hard glares at the stones, trying to piece it all together. Some of Sarah's kin hung back, looking nervous like this mess might stick to them. A lady in the third row straight up passed out, and the person next to her was shaking her, yelling for somebody to help. It was pure pandemonium. Sarah's eyes darted around the crowd, that long train on her gown trailing behind her like a lost shadow. Then she locked onto me up on the third-floor balcony. I stepped out, resting my arms on the railings, staring down at the chaos. Every head in the joint swiveled to follow her gaze, pinning me like I was putting on some crazy show. "What are you doing up there?" she screeched, her voice breaking with fury. You're not supposed to lay eyes on me before the wedding, you chicken. Weird thing to latch onto considering the dumpster fire we were in. I got this dark little kick out of it, knowing even as it all crashed down she was hung up on that old rule about the groom peeking early. Ain't no wedding today, I called out loud and clear so everybody could hear. You took care of that last night. She stopped dead, tears shining in her eyes. Ethan, come on, we can fix this, just you and me, not out here with all these people gawking. Why not? I fired back. Didn't bother you to fool around with my best friend. Seems fair these folks who shelled out cash and drove all this way ought to know why there's no I-do's happening. Her mom, steaming mad and red in the face, jabbed a finger up at me. You've dragged our family name through the mud in front of all these big shots. Do you even get how embarrassing this is for us? I let out a rough, sour laugh. Embarrassing? Sarah and Miles turned me into a laughingstock. I'm just evening things out. Then the ruckus kicked up again. Miles stumbled in from the front, half in his tux, hair all over the place, eyes bugging out like a cornered animal. Ethan, man, let's hash this out, he said, inching toward the stage. I flew down the stairs into the main hall to meet him head-on. Sarah darted in too, trying to cut me off, but that huge dress slowed her down. I shoved past the fabric, my gut twisting with rage, fists balled up tight. Miles started flapping his gums. Look, dude, you're reading this all wrong. She was stressed out and I couldn't stomach his lame excuses. Those pictures from the hotel room, burned into my brain from the video, flared up bright and hot. This wild, mean anger ripped through me, and I hauled off and clocked him square in the face, crack echoing out as the room went hush all at once. He stumbled back and hit the deck with a grunt. Everybody gasped together like they'd rehearsed it. Sarah screamed, "Stop it! You're hurting him!" and dropped down next to him, not giving a rip how her dress got all bunched up. Evelyn let out this choked yell, "You animal," hitting him in front of everybody. I pointed at Miles as he dragged himself up. He's the animal, him and your girl. They set me up to look like an idiot in my own story. Now everybody knows who they really are. A heavy quiet settled over the hall. Sarah glared up at me, tears pouring down her face. Ethan, I'm sorry, all right? Just quit this. I turned to the crowd. Half of them had their phones out, filming the whole train wreck, catching every second. Appreciate y'all showing up, I said, sarcasm thick as mud, but there's no wedding today. Sorry if you came for something sweet. You got the raw truth instead. Then I marched out through those big double doors, slamming them open hard. My folks trailed after me, stunned but sticking close. Sarah hollered my name, but I didn't turn around. I peeled out to the apartment, adrenaline still pumping like a freight train. Mom tagged along, rattled to her bones, eyes wet with tears. Ethan, you sure that was real? She asked, voice barely above a whisper once we got inside. I nodded, pulled up the clip, timestamp screaming last night, and played it for her. Her face dropped like she couldn't believe it. Oh my goodness, she breathed, wrapping me in a hug. I'm so sorry, honey. Dad hung back, not sure what to say. You did what you had to, son, he said, giving my shoulder a pat, but I could see it hurt him too. We're out a pile of cash on this wedding, but I'd rather lose that than watch you stuck in a lie. I thanked him both, told him to head home and take it easy. They left after promising over and over they'd have my back no matter what. Part of me felt lousy for how nuts the day got. My folks had to sit through that mess after scraping together so much dough, but I couldn't see any other way to play it. Just canceling it on the down low wouldn't have cut it for me. I needed the real story out there, loud and proud. After they took off, I got busy that night clearing Sarah's junk out of the apartment. I dragged boxes up from storage, stuffing in her clothes, that mountain of jewelry and hair stuff, her fancy face creams, even the little knickknacks she'd sprinkled everywhere. I packed it all up solid, scribbling labels with a fat marker. Then I rented a little van online, loaded it up around 11 at night, and drove over to her folks' giant house. That place was something else, tucked in a ritzy part of town, screaming stone pride from every corner. The gate guard knew me from dropping by before and eyed the van asking, "You holding up, Mr. Carter?" "Just bringing Sarah's stuff back," I said, keeping it flat. He let me through. I pulled up under their fancy front porch, big brick pillars and a heavy oak door staring down at me like they were judging. The anger was still simmering, but this strange peace was creeping in too. The rush was wearing off and it was hitting me, this was done. I piled the boxes neat on the doorstep, gave the big knocker a solid whack and headed back to the van. As I pulled away, a light flicked on inside, probably Victor or Evelyn stomping down to see who was banging at 2 in the morning. Let him deal with their darling girl's gear, I thought. She could hole up in her childhood room for all I cared. Next morning, I jolted awake to loud pounding on my door. For a fuzzy second I thought I was dreaming. Then Victor's voice roared, "Open up. We know you're in there." I yanked on a shirt, swung the door wide, and there they stood, Sarah, Victor, and Evelyn, all glaring like they were ready to tear me apart. Sarah's eyes were swollen and red, hair a wreck. Victor loomed in a sharp suit, fists tight. Evelyn gripped some papers, wrapped in a pricey coat like she was headed to a showdown. "We're here to talk payback," Victor said, voice cold as steel. I almost busted out laughing. "Payback for what?" Evelyn shoved the papers at me. "That wedding disaster, what else? We sank thousands into it. Hotels, food, bookings. Your little stunt torched everything." I skimmed the receipts. "You know your daughter was with Miles last night, right? Pretty sure they're the ones who blew it up." Sarah's face crumpled. "You didn't have to blindside me in front of everybody. You could have just called it off quiet if you were through." "I had every right," I snapped, heat flaring up again. "You and Miles made me a joke. I gave it right back. Don't act shocked it bit you." Victor's voice got louder. "We paid for half that wedding. Your folks covered the rest, but it ballooned way past their cut. We want cash back, say 10 grand, just a piece of what we're out." I stared, floored. "You think I owe you 10 grand for a wedding your daughter trashed?" Evelyn's mouth twisted. "You pulled that rotten projector trick. We had big names there, clients, backers, town leaders. You shamed us in front of people who matter. You're not skipping out without coughing up something." I nearly laughed at their nerve. "This doesn't even happen if Sarah doesn't hook up with Miles the night before. That's on her." Sarah flinched. "You jerk. Maybe if you'd been there more, gave a damn about me." I cut her off with a dry snort. "Oh, so I made you do it? Get lost, all of you. You're not getting a penny." Victor stepped up, looming over me. "You got any clue who you're tangling with? I've got sway around here." "You've crowed about that before," I said. "But I've got that video, Sarah's face, that timestamp. Push me and I'll let the whole thing loose. Your fancy friends can watch the full show. Then we'll see who's embarrassed." Victor's stare turned hard, but he paused. Sarah tried a softer angle, stepping up with watery eyes. "Ethan, please. We were in love once. We had something real. Don't wreck it all over one screw-up." "One screw-up?" I said, voice shaking. "You picked it. I saw it. Caught it on tape. No undoing that. Get out." Victor's shoulders sagged. He knew I had him beat. They could bluff, but I held the proof. Evelyn huffed, all high and mighty. "You'll wish you hadn't done this." "Not as much as I'd wish I'd married her," I said, shrugging. They stormed off, slamming the door so hard it shook the frame. I leaned against it, worn out but somehow lighter. It's finished, I thought. No wedding, no fiancé, no best friend. A rough win, but a win. Word got around quick. Buddies hit me up, some cheering me on, some stunned, some griping. I told him the same thing every time, how I nab him in the act, why I blasted it at the wedding. Some called it harsh, others said it was legendary. I tuned out the haters. Miles texted once, "Man, I'm sorry, but you gotta see, I didn't read the rest. He got canned from his job for being a snake. Good riddance." My folks were gutted, bummed about the money they lost, but glad I dodged a bullet. Dad told Mom, "The cash is gone, but Ethan still got his pride." I swore I'd pay him back. The Stones tried twisting it, moaning about my childish tantrum, but the guests saw what went down. Their rep took a dive. Sarah bunked with friends, maybe even Miles. Didn't matter to me. I moved to a smaller spot, threw myself into work, and started patching my life up. The hurt stuck around, but the anger kept me moving. The storm died down eventually. Still, I hung on to that hotel video, just in case anybody ever tried to rewrite the story.